Join me as I dive into the craziest American Revolution story you've probably never heard of, and see if I can uncover the wildest facts along the way. You know, the American Revolution, it's a classic story, right? We've all learned about it in school, the brave colonists standing up against the British Empire, fighting for their freedom and independence. But today, I want to tell you a story that often gets overlooked in those history classes, a story that's just as fascinating, just as groundbreaking, and just as wild. We often think of the American Revolution as a straightforward, black and white conflict between the Americans and the British. But the truth is, it was a messy, complicated, and multifaceted war that involved many different groups and factions. And one of those groups, a group that played a crucial role in the Revolution, is often forgotten in the history books. For example, did you know that there were actually many Native American tribes that fought alongside the British against the Americans? Yeah, it's not exactly the narrative we're used to hearing, is it? Or how about the fact that many African Americans fought for their freedom alongside the British, hoping to gain their independence from slavery? These are the kinds of complexities that get glossed over in our standard history lessons. But the event I want to focus on today is one that showcases the complexity and chaos of the Revolution in a really dramatic way. It's a story that involves a little-known hero, a daring rebellion, and a whole lot of intrigue. So buckle up and let's dive in. In the late 1700s, the American Revolution was in full swing, with battles raging from New York to Virginia. But one region that's often overlooked is the Southwest, specifically modern-day Florida and Louisiana. This was a region that was controlled by the Spanish, who were allied with the French, who in turn were allied with the Americans. Confused yet? Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. Anyway, in this region, there was a guy named Bernardo de Galvez, a Spanish governor who was determined to drive the British out of the region. He was a bit of a rebel, even among his own people, and he was willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. He formed alliances with local Native American tribes, he recruited a ragtag group of soldiers, and he launched a series of daring raids against the British. One of the most dramatic moments of the war came when de Galvez led a siege against the British fort of Pensacola. It was a David and Goliath battle, with the outnumbered and outgunned Spanish forces facing off against the heavily fortified British army. But de Galvez was undaunted, using clever tactics and sheer bravery to drive the British out. The turning point of the battle came when de Galvez made a daring decision. He ordered his men to launch a fake attack on one side of the fort, while he snuck around to the other side with a small group of soldiers. It was a crazy plan, but it worked like a charm. The British were completely caught off guard, and before they knew what was happening, de Galvez had breached the walls and taken control of the fort. The victory at Pensacola was a huge turning point in the war, marking a major shift in power in the region. And de Galvez became a hero, not just for his bravery, but for his cunning and strategic thinking. So what can we take away from this wild story? First of all, it shows just how complex and multifaceted the American Revolution was. It wasn't just a simple conflict between the Americans and the British. It was a global war that involved many different groups and factions. And secondly, it highlights the importance of individual heroes like Bernardo de Galvez, who were willing to take risks and challenge the status quo in order to achieve their goals. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the craziest American Revolution story you've probably never heard of. What do you think about this wild event? Do you have any other historical topics you'd like me to cover in future videos? Let me know in the comments below.